Well, welcome back to Muck You, folks. This is David Wheeler in Spruce Pine, North Carolina, and I'm here with my good buddy and co-host, Colonel Mo Davis, who, as I like to point out, is married up to his lovely wife, Lisa. She's the fortunate one out of this whole deal. Mo has to put up with me, and Lisa doesn't. So I'll throw it over to Mo to introduce our special guest today.
Well, thanks, David, and welcome back, everybody. And it's a beautiful day here in Western North Carolina. So what a change from a year ago when we were all still digging out from Hurricane Helene. So we got a lot to be thankful for. But as David said, we got another great show for you today. We kind of alternate back and forth between political candidates and folks in the news and that kind of stuff. And so today we've got someone who's thrown their hat in the ring to run for office out in South Dakota. It's Brian Bings, who, like me, is a retired Air Force JAG officer running for Senate in South Dakota as an independent. And Brian, thanks for joining us this morning.
Oh, thank you guys for having me. I appreciate the invitation.
Yeah. All right. So what got you into the Senate race out there in South Dakota in the Black Hills?
Well, I don't know if you know, but in 22, I ran before. So this is the second go round, having learned a lot the first time. So just by way of complete background here, I registered as an independent when I was 18 in Iowa, where I grew up. And I was a registered independent my entire life until the fall of 21, when I decided to run for office the first time. And I was motivated initially by the fact of January 6th, that I watched Americans beating law enforcement officers with poles and chanting for the murder of the vice president. And then I saw the South Dakota Democrats pretty much set up to give John Thune, the current majority leader of the Senate, a free pass without anybody running against him in 22. So, as someone who is not a multimillionaire myself, you can't really run as an independent unless you can self-finance. So I changed my registration to the Democratic Party and took off from there, running as a Democrat, learned a whole bunch. One of the big things that I learned was that I would go up to people, I would go up to people wearing Trump hats and literally tell them, introduce myself as a candidate and say, I'm going to guarantee with 100% certainty that you and I will agree on at least two, but probably three things. Then I'd run down my list, boom, 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 and they're nodding along. Typically it's all three. At the end, I would go, okay, can I count on your vote in November? We've agreed on, basically everything here. And then the first question out of their mouth was, so what are you?
Yeah.
And when I say, well, I was a lifelong independent, but I'm run as a Democrat, I more often than not heard I'll never vote for a Democrat. And that was the big lesson for me, is that ended the conversation, that people would not engage with you just because of the letter next to your name. That's the state of our politics right now. So after the election, I returned back my registration to independent, and I still feel the same threat exists today for the future of the Republic. So that's why I'm running again as an independent, having learned quite a bit the first time, as I said.
Right. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. I ran in 2020 for the House. And, like I think our backgrounds are pretty similar. Like I was saying, we both served in the JAG Corps. We both went to GW, got our LLMs from there.
Yeah.
And when I was running people out, and I think that, the demographic, in Western North Carolina is probably pretty similar to South Dakota, pretty conservative. And like you said, people would, you could talk about the issues and they would just, yep, like that. And then when they found out you're a Democrat, it's like, I ain't voting for a Democrat just because of the letter, next to the name. So, and you're not alone, in your running as an independent. I know Dan Osborne out in Nebraska, has gotten a good bit of attention. He, like you, he ran before and he's running again as an independent. And it seems like that's what people want. I think people are kind of tired of party politics and politicians that are beholden to political parties. And it seems like that independent streak, might be something that works in the 2026 midterms.
Yeah, that's what we're thinking. I obviously I paid close attention to Dan's race, and I actually spoke to him before I decided to do this again to kind of compare notes, his experience running in 24 versus my experience running in 22. And my experience in 22 was like, I'm never doing that again. It was just a horrible, draining experience. And he was very positive about running as an independent, and noted to me that there were people with Trump signs and his sign, and people with Harris signs and his sign in their yards. And he's like, well, I kind of felt like I was unifying to an extent. So there are actually 4 independents in the race right now for Senate. There's Osborne in Nebraska, Todd Achilles in Idaho, me in South Dakota, and Ty Pinkins in Mississippi. And we have spoken, and we're kind of all of the same mindset. We're all veterans of the same mindset of there's a core structural issues that we need to fix to make the government work for regular people again. So we're calling ourselves kind of like the fulcrum group of, if you get a handful of independents, say 4 or 5 independents in the Senate, and given how closely divided it is, if we can deny the majority to either party, then we can actually kind of force some good changes to the system that we're not seeing with the either side majority pinging back and forth.
Right. How's it working? I know, both parties have a pretty well organized, logistical support system and fundraising systems and all that. It seems like they make it difficult for an independent to run. So how are you finding the change, having run as a Democrat last time, independent this time, in terms of logistics and fundraising and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, it is more of a challenge inherently. Independents do have more of a challenge because of the nature of the structural system. So the system is designed to force you into one of the 2 camps. So it is more challenging, but I think we've kind of got a beat on it now with our approach, and people are more receptive to the idea of an independent, particularly given Dan Osborne's success and the prospect of actually having somebody that wants to make some structural changes. So they're receptive to that.
Well, hopefully, things certainly aren't working the way it's going, but it seems like there's a lot of, like you were saying, it seems like Democrats and Republicans hate each other, but they hate even more the thought of a third party or another player in the game. They'd rather compete against each other than have to compete against a third or fourth option.
Oh, absolutely. The South Dakota laws, for me to get on the ballot, I have to get roughly twice as many signatures on a nominating petition as either the Republican or the Democratic candidate. And that's obviously by design. Right. I don't know what reason it would serve other than like, we really do not want anybody else to be on the ballot other than these 2 groups. So the system is designed to prevent this competition. But then in South Dakota, independents are the 2nd largest voting bloc. They're now ahead of Democrats. Mm-hmm. And nationally, if you look at the numbers, independents, counting the whole country, are the largest group of registered voters at 40+%. So they're well more than Democrats or Republicans.
Yeah, it's the same way here in North Carolina. The biggest group here, they're called unaffiliated rather than independent. But the biggest group, 42% of the voters are unaffiliated voters in North Carolina. So it's wow. The Republicans have held pretty steady at about 30%, but the attrition has come on the Democratic side, where people have switched from being Democrats to being unaffiliated. And I think that says a lot about folks just being disillusioned with party politics.
Yeah, I agree.
So what are the big issues that you're trying to hit on to get folks to come over onto your side?
Well, the broad theme that we I think everybody agrees, because when I talked to people in 22, everybody would agree with me that billionaires should pay a higher tax rate than people who work for a living. So the broad theme is that big money has corrupted the system. They buy the politicians, the lobbyists, the corporations, everything, and regular people are getting the shaft. So that is the broad theme. And then we're going to run out with healthcare. Everybody recognizes that's a problem. So the opponent that I have, Mike Rounds, he is, of course, sticking to the party line. He does what he's told. So he's a good soldier in that regard. And he has, cut Medicaid and Medicare funding. So rural hospitals are going to take it on the chin, and we're going to see that soon. So people are concerned about that. And then the ACA premium stipends, tax credits, that's also an issue that people are concerned about, because South Dakota is one of the highest states that are looking at premium increases at, I think it was 235% is what we're looking at next year for people that buy their insurance through the ACA market.
Yeah. Yeah, well, those are the same issues we're facing here. We're a pretty rural area, and it's projected that in North Carolina, 5 rural hospitals will close because of the Medicaid cuts. And 2 of those 5 are out here in the mountains of Western North Carolina, where we already have a shortage of healthcare providers. So this notion that, hey, we're strengthening the healthcare system is just, nonsense, but a lot of people are buying into it.
Yeah. Yeah. Eventually the consequences will come home to roost and people go like, well, what's wrong with this? Glad I didn't vote for a damn Democrat that was trying to fix it, I guess.
Yeah. Hey,
So
listen, I know you, after you left the service, you taught at Northern State University, both you and your wife did. And more lately, after that, you were a park ranger, part of the National Park Service. So what became of that?
yeah, I was teaching at Northern State right after the Air Force. I was teaching criminal justice there, and then they gave me a free hand to do what I wanted. So I could also do some Homeland Security. I taught that class. I did some international law, which is what my specialization was in the Air Force, um, and counterterrorism, that sort of thing. So that was fun. When we bought our property in the Hot Springs area of South Dakota, southwest Southern Black Hills area, there's a national park, Wind Cave National Park, about a 15-minute drive north of here. And who wouldn't want to work at a national park? It's just an amazing experience. So I applied for a position there and was working as a ranger until the Doge cuts, Elon went rampant. And we were on the chopping block. I was a probationary employee along with a handful of other folks. And we all expected to be fired when they were initially saying, we're going to let everybody go. And it wasn't until the day that they announced the firings that we learned we were not fired because we all happened to be veterans. So sitting back and watching that and seeing what was happening to not only the National Park Service, but to all the other federal entities where they were just randomly firing people and chopping the budgets and everything, I got to thinking that I can do something about this potentially, given my experience in 22 running. So that's really kind of the motivator to get back into this and try to do what I can to restore sanity to how the government operates.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the same again here in Western North Carolina. Our national parks and national forests are the lifeblood of our economy. And certainly when Hurricane Helene hit, it's really taken an impact on tourism, which has had, a big impact on our economy. But, before Hurricane Helene hit, the Park Service and the Forest Service already had a $32 billion backlog of deferred maintenance.
Mm-hmm.
And, that's only getting worse. You can't say that we're going to make it better by firing people and cutting budgets, but that's the argument they're trying to make.
Yeah, that's I experienced that same sort of backlog, the minor issues at Wind Cave, where there's things that needed to be done that there's no money to do it. And of course, you look at the staffing for the Park Service nationally, and since 2010, they've lost a huge percentage of their staff already. So they're operating a little bit lean to begin with, and then now we're going to fire more of them. It's just crazy. If you don't care about parks, just say I don't give a damn about parks, and that's why we're going to do this. But Americans, having worked the desk, Americans love the national parks.
Right.
That category, I love the national parks. The people that came in loved the national parks, and we would often hear of like, "How you guys doing?" And we would get postcards. People would just send postcards to the rangers at Wind Cave saying, "Hey, we're with you, and we support you, and what can we do for you?" It was very gratifying to have that sort of support.
Well, and then you put on top of that the fact that Doge was just a boondoggle. What was the purpose of Doge? Does anybody know? Maybe one of our listeners can let us know what the purpose of Doge, because it didn't save any money. It ended up costing what, $12 billion or something like that. And everybody they fired, they've subsequently had to rehire a bunch of them. So sorry you had to go through that, Brian. But so, Lieutenant Colonel, you have Iowa background, smart enough to get out and move to South Dakota, as my friend James Mathis says. What do you hunt up there?
Well, I've not gotten too much into it. I did pheasant hunting when I was in Iowa growing up. So we've got East River has a lot of pheasant. Out here, I'm still not settled. I'm living in a camper at the moment, so there's a fun fact. I'm just over a year in a camper while my house is under construction. So there's plenty out in the area where I am now in terms of deer. You can get some elk tags. There's pheasant. not necessarily right in this area, but near, not too far away. So yeah, I'm going to be getting into it a little bit more now that I'm in the area where there is things. My property has deer coming across it about every day, and we've got a gaggle of wild turkeys that hang out and wander through every day as well.
Well, glad to hear. Every Iowa boy grew up pheasant hunting, I think, for the most part. I certainly did with James Mathis, who a good friend of mine who lives in Sioux Falls right now. And actually, my son and I, Nico, who Mo has met many times, we're heading up to go hunting with James. So maybe we should invite you over to Sioux Falls, join our hunting party right around Thanksgiving.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, we'll bring.
Have you been up there hunting before?
No, I haven't. I've been to Sioux Falls several times. It's beautiful up there. I love it.
Yeah, Sioux Falls is a great city. Small but big. So yeah, it's got the hybrid situation going on.
Yeah, and it's growing. So the other thing we want to talk about was this campaign of yours. So how, first of all, how can folks learn about you? How could they donate to your campaign? What's the best way to do that?
Sorry, I have to turn off the furnace there so it's not as loud. But
that's all right. That's okay.
The website is bengsforsouthdakota.com, and that is BENGS for southdakota.com. So we're in the process of getting a policy platform up within the next probably week or so. So it is well developed for what it is right now. But if you're looking for specifics, they'll be there soon. But I encourage everybody to check it out. The approach I'm trying to take is to kind of remind people, South Dakotans and Americans, of who we used to be. So I'm running on the Cowboy Code of the West, which you can kind of summarize as tell the truth and take care of your neighbors. And then there's some other points as well. But everybody in South Dakota kind of thinks of themselves like, oh yeah, we're old Westers, we're settlers and that sort of thing. And so I'm embracing that, because if we can, get everybody to act like that, things will turn out better.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Go back to the basics of taking care of each other and pay your fair share.
Yeah.
And as Tim Wells says, mind your own damn business.
Exactly.
Can you imagine if we did that? We'd be in a different world right now. But for some reason, these folks in Washington right now think that they need to be in every part of our life, which is, I grew up in Iowa in the plains in the 70s and 80s, and the Republicans' mantra was government, get off my back. Well, yeah. Government is on everybody's back right now in ways that we could have never imagined. So tell us a little bit about the race. Tell us about your Republican opponent. Tell us, is there going to be a Democrat in the race as well, or are we trying to head that off?
Yeah. So Mike Rounds, he was kind of hedging for a bit. He's the incumbent. He'll be running for his third term now. He's a former governor of South Dakota, and he's a yes man fundamentally. So he does what he's told. He's a good soldier in that regard, and he will tell you with a straight face that like, oh, I'm looking out for regular people. Well, he votes to gut the Affordable Care Act and to end Medicaid and all this other stuff. But so as an incumbent Republican, we were just looking over his FEC reports, and he gets big money from corporate PACs and big money donors. We were comparing it to mine, where my average donation is $30, and his is significantly more from big dollar donors. And there is, in fact, a Democrat candidate as well, Julian Boudouin. He is running, and I've spoken to him way back when, and he's confident that he can do well, and more power to him if he can. I'm not running because I think I love running as a candidate. I'm running because my experience in 22 shaped my perception of who can be competitive in South Dakota. And it wasn't a Democrat, but I guess hope springs eternal. So we'll see. Yeah.
And Democrats are really good at, snatching victory out of the mouth of defeat, or whatever that phrase is. It's just too bad the Democrats can't think more strategically. We have the same problem out here in Western North Carolina, where the Democrats would rather win and be right than win. And,
that's what it seems like.
Yeah. And I think it's a tradition just across the party that, we try and do the right thing, be the right people. And if we lose, oh, shucks. Well, I think we're realizing that, we got to get tougher. And Mo and I have, folks that will listen to this podcast know that we tried to run campaigns that way, and we're pilloried by the party here in West North Carolina. But so what else do you think could help set you apart from Rounds and from the Democratic candidate and win? Because you seem like a perfect fit for South Dakota. You've got the military background, you've got the cowboy mentality of take care of each other. You're an educated guy. How do you break free from all the money that Round's going to have in the Democrat?
Obviously, money is Colonel Davis, you ran. Money is a key factor going forward. So we are, as I said, I think we're doing a little bit better. We've got a kind of our groove down in terms of fundraising. So it seems like it's going better this quarter and picking up. But fundamentally, my perception as an independent is that South Dakota is one of multiple states where national party politics isn't working for regular people. Republicans take us for granted, as evidenced by Mike Rounds and John Thune, and them not saying a word about the tariffs, despite it, basically destroying the soybean market and the farmers that are growing these crops that aren't going anywhere because foreign governments are not allowing them to be purchased. And then the Democrats basically forget we exist at the national level. So the approach here is to try to sell the idea that if you want something that represents you, regular people, and they do, I know that again because I've talked to them, then an independent is going to be the best sell for you, because the Republicans just are happy with whatever the national politics is, and they're beholden to big money. So it's a big money versus the little guy, and the little guy always comes out short of the stick here. And so that's the fundamental approach here. And most South Dakotans, they just don't see a Democrat as a good alternative to a Republican. They do, however, pretty much see themselves as fiercely independent. And that's kind of what you mentioned with Western North Carolina, which is why they're willing to listen to an independent. The standard approach of, I saw what happened to Dan Osborne in 24, and a little bit what's happening to me now is that the Republican approach is like, no, he's a Democrat. You don't have to listen to him because he's a Democrat. So they don't want to engage in the discussion of ideas. They just want to have you slotted into he's a Democrat, so I don't actually have to worry about him because nobody wants to vote for a Democrat. And that's what we're trying to pierce with the independents is, no, here's the ideas, and I'm different than a Democrat, and I'm actually different than a Republican as well.
Yeah, I was running, again, this time out here, I've dropped out since then just because of money. I mean, it's unfortunate that money is so ingrained in our political process, but that's just a fact of life. But one of the things I was trying to hit on here, I mean, I think the key to winning in places like South Dakota or Western North Carolina, if it comes down to a pick between Democrat and Republican, we just don't have the numbers. Republicans are going to win. But if we can make this a race where the focus is you're either the rich or you're the rest. And if you're part of the rich, then this administration is doing good things for you. You're going to get richer. But 90+% of the population are not rich. They're the rest, and they're the ones that are paying the price for it. And no matter how they try to paint it, cutting Medicaid, cutting SNAP, inflation is hurting working class people. In fact, that was my campaign motto, was kicking ass for the working class, because we've neglected those folks for too long. And I think we can make it a race where we're not asking you to pick Democrat or Republican. You're picking between either you're part of the rich or you're part of the rest. And if you're part of the rest, then you're on our team.
I agree. That's fundamentally the message that having spoken to all the other independents that are running for Senate, that's the same message. Everybody is saying the same thing here, that we're getting screwed by the big money interests.
Yep.
And the whole system is structured so we can fight about other things. Well, let's fight about the culture wars and then forget how the big money is picking your pocket.
Yeah.
The independent approach hopefully will allow us to kind of cut through that culture war stuff and just go, look, here's the deal. As you highlighted, which party are you? Are you ultra rich? Then yeah, I guess you're probably not going to support me. And I understand why. But if you're not ultra rich, then you should be supporting me because you're getting your pocket picked.
Yeah. Yeah. You got to give them credit. I mean, the billionaire class has used their money effectively to put out propaganda to convince working class people that It's either your patriotic duty or your religious duty to vote against your own interest.
Yeah.
And with one hand, they're waving, oh, transgender athletes. And with the other hand, they're picking your pocket, on issues that, in the grand scheme of things, I think for most people, paying the rent or the mortgage and putting food on the table and being able to take their kid to the doctor when they're sick are more important than where people go to pee.
Yeah, that's my take, but you've still got the diehards like, no, that I'm a single issue voter. And like, I can't tell you, maybe you had the same experience. I was asked multiple times to define a woman. How do you define a woman? Like, okay, so you guys are trained to just come up to people and ask that. I've literally in my life never experienced an issue where I had to go, well, are you a woman or a man? Because it didn't matter.
Yeah.
It did not matter.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, again, I think the other side's done a really good job of using their money effectively to persuade people to, hurt themselves and their families. And we've got to do a better job of messaging, because they've certainly, just beat us in that regard. Hey, let me ask you, as a retired military guy, what's your take on, I think when you and I served, the notion that we'd be deployed to American cities, to be on American streets, to harass American citizens, to shut them up would be unimaginable. So what's your take on what's happening with our military?
Yeah, I'm very worried about that. I'm obviously opposed to deploying military forces to a U.S. city. Now, I was at Barksdale Air Force Base in Louisiana when Katrina hit, and so New Orleans was in dire strait, and I volunteered to go down there if they needed people when I was on active duty, and it didn't ultimately need me, but they did send some groups down there, and that I would fully support. Going out to help
Yep.
people, that you can expect that, and of course that's legally permissible as well. But when you're sending Marines into a city, or you're activating the National Guard to come use force or be seen as a force against Americans, what is that? I don't even understand. Like, particularly when you've got like the Portland situation where they're wearing costumes now to demonstrate how absurd the whole war zone is.
Yeah. Yeah, I enjoyed it. I guess it was last weekend they had their naked bike ride and had thousands of people that kind of hard to argue that you're carrying a concealed weapon when you got no clothes on. So. Hey, let me ask, your background in international law. I guess for the fourth time now, the military has blown up Venezuelan boats that are alleged to be drug boats. What's your take on the extrajudicial killing of Venezuelans?
Yeah, as I understand it, their kind of rationale here that they're trying to sell is that, oh, we are in an armed conflict with these drug cartels, which that doesn't work for any number of ways. So you can try to make that argument, in which case, if it was valid that the drug cartels were an armed force that were actually invading us, then targeting them as they are would be valid. But that is, of course, not the case. So, just randomly executing people because, hey, this looks good and I can talk about it on the news and they're from Venezuela, although I understand maybe some were actually Colombian now. We are going to increasingly become a pariah in the international system that we built to
Right.
hold countries accountable for doing stuff like what we are now apparently doing.
Yeah. Yeah, I know it's ironic that if you look at after World War II, as we led the effort to create the Geneva Conventions, the law of war, the UN, NATO, all those things. The U.S. was the driving force behind those. And to see us now turn our back on the things that we worked so hard to put into place, it's just 10 years ago would have been unimaginable.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, this is not the same country that I grew up in. You could not imagine what was happening, as you point out, 10 years ago. I've approached this from the standpoint of like the U.S. has a identity crisis right now of what do we want to do, or who are we? And so far, who we used to be is apparently losing to who we could imaginarily be. The strong country that does whatever it wants and everybody bows to our will, disregard all these rules that we set up for a good purpose. So my take on this is that if we're going back into isolationism, unilateral isolationism, and the old, prior to World War II system of the might makes right, we're in a nuclear weapon era, and that doesn't end well for everybody, because when you get more countries going, wow, I really need a nuclear weapon, then you've got more problems for, wow, I really need to use this nuclear weapon potentially. So this is not the time to be going back to what it used to be in the 19th century.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm really disappointed that, my first court martial I ever did was back in 1984. And one of my opponents was a young captain from South Carolina named Lindsey Graham. And so I've known him for, 41 years, and worked with him and John McCain on the Military Commissions Act when, they were the two Republicans pushing back on the abuse of executive authority by the Bush administration. And to see him, capitulate now and, bend the knee to Trump, and Roger Wicker, Roger Wicker was in the reserves in the JAG Corps, and was briefly assigned to my office when I was the SJA at Columbus Air Force Base. And, those are two guys that I know better, but they've made the calculation that it's in their interest to do Trump's bidding. There are other people that are just stupid and got sucked into the whole MAGA thing, but those are at least two of our former Air Force JAG colleagues that know better, but have made the decision to bend their values.
Yeah, I think I would say that both of the senators from South Dakota, they're more of your traditional Republican, but they are quite happy to remain silent and do what they are told to do now. So people who sell out their values for a position do not deserve that position. There should be a line somewhere where, like, I will lose, I do not agree with Liz Cheney, but, I respect her completely for what she did.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when I was chief prosecutor at Guantanamo, it was her dad that, was one of the prime architects of the torture policy and all that. In fact, Liz Cheney had blocked me on Twitter because of my criticism of her dad. But like you said, I've got great respect, for her. And we've had Adam Kinzinger's on our show, several months ago. And, the two of them, had the courage of their convictions and, paid the price for it. But I'm betting they sleep pretty well at night for having, stuck by their guns.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Those are, the profiles in courage. They embody that spirit, I would say.
So, Lieutenant Colonel, let's give folks your website one more time so they can understand how to get a hold of you and potentially donate.
Okay. The website is bangsforsouthdakota.com, and that is BENGS for southdakota.com. And I'd also draw their attention, if anybody's interested, Brian Bangs has a Substack where I publish articles about, I publish discussions of policy, things that are going on in the news, my take on that. So there's a lot of different sources where they can find me on Twitter, Facebook, all that stuff.
Okay, great. So it's Bangs, BENGS, for South Dakota, folks. Go check Brian out. If you're inclined, please send him a donation. I'm a big fan of any way to beat the Republicans. Let's do it. Brian's a good guy and has served this country honorably, and extremely intelligent, educated guy that I think would do well in government. I also want to, we have a tradition here talking about our favorite libation. Do you imbibe at all, or a bourbon guy?
I'm not so much into the hard stuff, but yes, I have. I'm more of a routine beer drinker. So in the Black Hills, we have some decent breweries out here.
All right. Let's highlight a couple.
As do we here in Western North Carolina.
Oh, well, yeah, right, I know. That was
That's
part
right,
of
Mo.
I visited Asheville. There was so many breweries that we went to.
Yeah.
But my favorite out here is it's from Lost Cabin Brewing. It's called Lord Grizzly. It's a Scotch ale, and it's got some kick to it. It's a more robust beer, and it's just a really nice thing to sit down with a meal, or just to have a beer unto itself.
Cool. Well, I'll check that out and see if we can find it out in this part of the woods.
Hey, Brian, and the way we got on this ending the show talking about alcohol. One of our early guests was another Air Force guy, Denver Riggleman, former congressman from Virginia. And a few years back, he and his wife started a distillery. So that's how we've gotten on. It's got an Air Force connection in a roundabout way, but it was Denver Riggleman that kind of triggered this whole alcohol discussion.
I should add that my wife and I, probably more so my wife, but I also enjoy it. We also enjoy, it's not the Moscow Mule, but it is the ginger beer. And in lieu of vodka, we put in Jägermeister. So it's a Munich Mule, which it's quite nice.
Yeah. Well, that bringing back some fond early morning memories of Iowa City, Jägermeister, and some terrible mornings after that I didn't make class. But so what was your hangout in Iowa City when you were in law school there?
We spent a lot of time at the Airliner.
All right. Yeah, that's a classic place. I love that place.
Yeah, the pizza there was outstanding, and then the beer specials were good too.
Yeah. Well, those were times long ago, and certainly we had a great time in Iowa City as well. So, so do you have kids, Brian?
I do. I have 2 daughters. The oldest, she went to, she's Air Force ROTC, by the way, as well. So she benefited from our time in Germany where she learned German because we just sent her to the local school and like, hey, go learn German. So she learned German and was like, well, I like languages. And the Air Force was willing to pay for her to learn Russian. So she went to the University of Georgia down in, your neck of the woods, where she was able to participate in the Russian language flagship program that the DoD sponsors at a handful of universities across the country. And she's actually studying her capstone year in Kazakhstan right now, where she is immersed in Russian to make sure that she's, no kidding, professionally proficient with Russian at the end of it.
Wow, that's terrific. And your other daughter?
My youngest is a sophomore at the University of Northern Iowa, where she is studying history, public history, and public administration. She's interested in museum administration, that sort of stuff, although she has recently mentioned like, hey, should I consider law school? So that's a possibility as well, potentially.
Well, that's great. That's terrific. Well, we need more female intelligent lawyers, and so we wish her the best on that. And thank you again for joining us. That's a wrap for this episode of Muck You. I'm David Wheeler here with a big thanks to my partner in crime, Colonel Mo Davis, for co-hosting and keeping the conversation just the right amount of dangerous. A huge thanks as well to Lieutenant Colonel Brian Beng, running for the South Dakota Senate. I have one job to get it right, Brian, and I can't even get it out of my mouth. So we'll try that again.
One day.
Colonel Beng, thank you for joining us. He's running for the United States Senate in South Dakota. It's refreshing to hear from somebody who actually gives a shit about this country instead of just serving up talking points. If you liked what you heard today, hit subscribe, share it with a friend, and maybe even an enemy. We're equal opportunity truth tellers around here. Until next time, keep your coffee strong, your facts stronger, and whatever you do, don't let anybody muck with you.
This has been Muck You, co-hosted by Colonel Mo Davis in Asheville and David Wheeler in Spruce Pine, North Carolina. Thanks to our guest today, Lieutenant Colonel Brian Bengs, candidate for United States Senate in South Dakota. Learn more about Lieutenant Colonel Bengs' campaign and donate at bengs4southdakota.com. Muck You is produced by American Muckrakers, copyright 2025, and all rights are reserved. Enjoy additional Muck You episodes with Errol Musk, Anthony Scaramucci, David Jolly, Adam Kinzinger, Paul Bigala, Mark McKinnon, and others at AmericanMuckrakers.com. Please subscribe and support our work on Substack. Thanks for listening, and y'all come back for the next episode of Muck You.